Well, every Australian ambassador will return home this month as the government conducts a major review of foreign policy. This year's foreign policy white paper will be the first developed since the Howard government. The Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, has defended the cost of recalling more than 100 staff for a two-day meeting in Canberra.
We have found $440,000 that would have been spent on regional meetings and meetings back to Australia that we have reallocated to this. I believe all up it will cost $1 million. What I'm seeking to do is replace the meetings and the regional meetings that occur in the region or around the world, or indeed back here in Canberra, with one significant meeting to gain the insights and perspectives of our most experienced diplomats. In fact, it's within the budget. There is no new money required, and I believe it's a very efficient and effective way of hearing from them on their experiences, observations, their real-time experiences. These are people who are situated in countries in our missions across the globe, over 100 missions, and they're coming back to Australia to be part of our white paper on foreign policy.
That was the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, just speaking moments ago, and political reporter Ashlyn McGee has more.
More than 100 members, as you say, of the diplomatic mission will be brought home for a special meeting with the Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, the Trade Minister, Steve Ciobo, and a Labor representative to discuss what Australia's next foreign policy white paper will look like. Now, normally these diplomats have meetings in regional centres around the world a couple of times a year, and sometimes it gets DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, into a little bit of trouble because they can be quite expensive. There was one notable meeting in Paris last year that they came under quite a lot of criticism for. So this year we've got 113 diplomats coming back to Australia for 3 days later this month to nut out what Australia's foreign policy strategy will look like for the next 5 to 10 years. Now, that hasn't been done since 2003. That was our last foreign policy white paper. And of course, a lot has changed since then, needless to say, off the back of Zoe Daniels' cross then. We certainly had Prime Minister John Howard in then. We were embarking on the so-called war on terror. The world is a very different place, and they'll be looking to nut out what Australia's foreign policy looks like.
Okay, and Ashlyn, trouble continues to brew on the backbench. What's causing the unrest this time?
Look, that's exactly right. Yesterday we had the resignation of the very outspoken backbencher George Christensen as the chief whip of the Nationals Party. Now, in effect, what that allows him to do is to be even more outspoken when he thinks that the government has got it wrong on policy or key decisions. But that's not the only difficulty that the government and Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister, is facing. There was also a report handed down yesterday on the Racial Discrimination Act. Now, that report didn't suggest making any major changes to that act, but there's still a really strong push from some on the government's backbench. They want to see that law watered down and to remove the words in the Racial Discrimination Act, or to soften those words. But again, some in the other part of the coalition say that the law, the act, should be kept exactly as it is. So more trouble on the backbench right when Malcolm Turnbull wants everyone to get together, and that's the message he certainly gave to the party yesterday. He said, we can win the next election, but only if we stay united.
Ashlyn McGee there with that report. Now,